Hey, everybody. Home shows for painting contractors can be a great way to bring in business and get more leads.
Today, we've got 6 things you should never do at a trade show to help you maximize the number of leads you're going to get from your next show.
Let's get into it.
Michael, it's trade show season. I am, for the first time ever, doing a trade show for our painting company. I've tried to stay away from it like the plague. And when I say a trade show, I mean home show season.
Oh, yeah.
Um, and so, here we are going to a home show. We've done other trade shows commercially, but home shows are new. I know you've got a ton of experience in this area. You've gone around this track before. And
Oh, yeah.
so let me ask, have you done anything recently or where you at?
Yeah. So we're actually in the middle of a home show right now. Here we are. We're recording this in early February. It'll come out a few weeks from now. But like you said, it's February, March, April is typically a busy like home show season around much of North America. There's all sorts of these shows going on at convention centers or malls, whatever. And yeah, I've got a lot of experience. I first started doing home shows for the painting company I was running in college, and have been doing it ever since. So about half of my life or more than half of my life, been going to home improvement shows and working them. And I have a healthy love-hate relationship. It is a lot of time, a lot of effort, but if you do it well, it's can be very, very profitable, a great way to drive a lot of leads.
Cool. Well,
Yeah.
I'm excited to learn from you. So, I mean, talk to me.
Yeah. So I think, we've learned a lot over the years, a lot of trial and error. So let's, I've kind of come up with a little bit of a list. Here's some, tips and tricks for somebody who is maybe new to doing home shows, or maybe it's somebody that's been doing it a while, but not getting great results, from my experience, as well as just from what I've noticed doing this for years and kind of seeing some of the other booths and companies and stuff. All right. So let's dive in. First one, no chairs. We're not there to sit. We're not going to be comfortable. It's not going to be a whole lot of fun.
But Michael, my legs hurt.
Yep. 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 So I'm, not, this was a lot easier when I was in my 20s. I'm not going to lie. But here's the thing. So when I notice so our sales reps or, painters or whoever we might have working in the booth, when they are standing up, a few things happen. One, we're at the same eye level as the, homeowner or the consumer who's walking around, looking at our booth, right? And so it's not like this odd dynamic where I'm sitting in a chair, maybe behind a table or something. We can talk about that in a second. And, I'm talking like up at somebody, or, and so it's like they feel awkward. They're not like, oh, am I like supposed to kind of crouch down a little bit to have a conversation? Or maybe I'm going to stand up as I start to have a conversation. And it's just this very like awkward dynamic. I think it would be, imagine like, if you're having a job interview or something and like one person's standing and the other person's sitting, it's just an awkward conversation.
Yeah, I mean, the power dynamic is a little bit off for sure.
For sure. Yep, exactly. And I just think it's very like awkward and unapproachable.
Hmm.
But I also think it's like there's something to be said for the energy that I think comes from standing. We've probably heard of like you have a quick standing meeting so that we're not just going to like sit and get comfy and hang out.
Hmm.
And and it's like that's the energy I want our team to have, or I want to personally have when I'm working in the booth, is like a higher energy, you know, let's go. We're here to engage with people. We're not here to just hang out and, kind of relax. So
All right.
that's,
Well,
no chairs. I mentioned a minute ago too, is like, I said, sitting behind a table. That's another thing that kind of really goes with it. I think the standard home show setup, it's
mhm.
like ubiquitous, is some kind of big banner in the background. Let's call it a 6-foot table across the front with their big logo on the table. And then somebody sitting, maybe two people are sitting behind the table and, kind of playing on their phone or whatever. And they've got some stuff sprawled out on the table and, people are supposed to come up and talk to them.
Mhm.
And I just feel like it is so uninviting. We've got this table that's like, again, it's like a barrier between me as like maybe the consumer trying to talk to the person in the booth, and then again, they look pretty comfy. They're kind of playing on their phones. I don't want to interrupt them. I'll just keep moving on. And it's like, again, that's the exact opposite of what we're trying to accomplish with some of the setup stuff.
Totally. I mean, I was going to try to question you a little bit on this, but I agree with you too much on this one, which is that like,
All right.
you get the energy, you receive the energy you put out in a lot of ways, right? So if you're sitting there, how many times I've been to a few home shows, unfortunately. And the thing is when people are there, I feel like I'm bothering them. If they're sitting at a table, I feel like I'm
100%.
getting in the way of whatever interesting thing they're doing. Usually they're kind of sitting there. Maybe they're bored on their phone or something. They're not engaging, and so that energy just isn't there. And I think of the booths that I do talk to people, and usually they're more open, inviting, more free space, and something that like just feels like a conversation can happen. Because even though people go to these things, it's like the mindset is I'm going, but I don't really want to talk to anybody. Or if the opportunity is not like that obvious, I'm not going to put myself out there because that's weird. It's confrontational. So, anyways, agreed.
Yeah,
what else you got?
Yeah, I mean, just on that last, maybe on that setup thing, and then we'll move on to the second point. But it's like we have at the current show we're at, we have a 10 by 20 booth. It's 20 feet wide. The only thing that is not on the back wall is a small, like round bistro table, right? So if you can imagine, it's like 3 foot round, and it's a great little spot with a little tiny sign on it. We have like a little bowl of mints, so because people love to kind of grab like a little mint or a piece of candy or something like that. I think that's a great thing. But it also just provides like it can be like a little gathering spot for 2 or 3 people depending or whatever to come up, kind of hang out around the table, and like we can have a conversation just like if you were at a cocktail party or something like that. And like that's the kind of atmosphere that we want in the booth, is like that kind of mingling and getting to know somebody type of an atmosphere. So anyways, it's very intentional how we do that type of a setup. Point number 2, the logo. Nobody really cares about your logo. And so when you're setting up your booth, don't make your logo the main focus in all of the signage and everything that you're putting out there. I see this so often, is it's huge logo in the background, maybe, logo on the front of that 6-foot table, like I mentioned before, and it looks great. And, even you and I both know not all the logos in the home improvement industry are any good, but we'll save that for another podcast. But even the best logos aren't, we're not like Pepsi or Coca-Cola. There's not a whole lot of brand recognition, again, even for the companies that have been around for a long time. And so I'm not saying don't have any logo. I'm saying don't make it the main focus of the signage in your booth, but instead speak to the pain point of your ideal customer, whatever that might be. And so, again, if you're selling, like if your focus is maybe interior and exterior residential painting, you might have, up on like the biggest part, like whatever, like the backdrop or whatever it is, it might say, your city, let's just, whatever, it might say Dallas's highest rated painting company. And you can back that up because on Google, you are the highest rated painting company in Dallas. Boom. Like put that up in the biggest font you can fit on that full backdrop. And then in like the small section underneath, put your logo. Like, again, that might be an example of how somebody could set it up without making their logo be the dominant part. What are your thoughts?
Then, okay, so someone's listening. It's like, well, then how are people going to remember my company? Like, that's really what I'm looking for, is like, I'm looking for creating some brand recognition, right? Like,
no,
what do you think?
Nobody's going to remember your company. So a home show is a direct sales opportunity. This is an opportunity to get leads, and we're going to talk about this in just a minute here, but it's like, we're not here to create brand recognition. To be honest with you, like I'm going to just say pretty much everybody in the home improvement business, we're not big enough to spend our money on branding activities. We need to spend our money on activities that are going to directly drive leads. So I need to know is how many estimates did I schedule or how many, people's contact information did I get from the show? That's where the value is. The value is not in the residual that happens afterwards, from, passing a bunch of stuff out or whatever. Again, there can be some residual, but that's, in my opinion, very much so like less important and should be less of the focus when I'm thinking about, the setup and the like signage and stuff when I'm creating my booth.
Can you give a couple more examples for anyone listening, just about what the messaging might be? Like, I know you mentioned like, highest rated painting company in Dallas. What other good, statements would you put up on there?
So I think it comes back to is like, what are the unique pain points of your customers? Well, we've talked about this, I believe, in a previous episode. But like, what are those unique pain points? What makes your company special? Call it a unique sales proposition. Is it your warranty? Is it your, the fact that you have an interior designer to help with colors? Is it, how, I don't know, how, I was going to say how long you've been in business. I think that needs to be secondary to like, why does that matter to a customer? If you've been around for 25 years, I think that's awesome. But like, tell me, why do I care as a homeowner? Right. It's like, we've been trusted with painting homes in your community for over 25 years. Like, that resonates with me better than we've been in business for 25 years.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, again, those are some of the things for us. Typically when we're at a show, we're really focused on our cabinet painting business and division. It's one of the biggest things that we do. And so we're talking about our warranty as our like main, headline banner, if you will, of, our lifetime warranty. It's like, that's where we want to stand out. And so it basically says in biggest, boldest letters, cabinet refinishing, lifetime warranty. Right. And it's just like what we call our lifetime touch-up promise. So it's literally cabinet refinishing, lifetime touch-up promise. And so anybody walking around that's thinking about, their cabinets are ugly, or like there's something that they don't like about them, immediately is like, oh wait, that's what I'm looking for. I need to go talk to them.
Right.
No, as opposed to, putting just really big up there textbook painting, and then people can come up and ask us if we paint textbooks, and it just gets weird. And yeah, that's not the goal. Again, it's like, why are you at this show? And what is like, oh, I need to update my kitchen. Those guys, that's who I want to go talk to.
Right. Right. Yeah. I mean, so I guess for a lot of people, picking in one statement is hard, because they're like, well, then what about everything else? What about the interior? What about the exterior? What about everything else? And I think there's more power in being specific than there is in being broad. And even the show that I think we're going to, I mean, there's going to be 8 to 10 other painting contractors. There's already enough of a sense of commoditization in our industry, like everyone's the same, that you just putting a logo up and being like, we're painters, doesn't help the customer identify what the right conversation is to have. So yeah, 100%.
Yeah.
Wow. And you're making a lot of sense today.
Well, every once in a while. Glad I could surprise you.
Yeah, thanks.
All right, I'm going to move on. Let's see. Maybe you'll disagree here in a minute. All right. So number 3, again, this is going to go back to the branding thing. So we are not at the show to hand stuff out. It's, I see people walking around the shows. They've got their huge bags and they're carrying like you got to get the pink or like the neon blue yardstick and all the things. And like, I've got a couple yardsticks. They're fun. I don't know what companies they're from. And like, I don't really care, because that's not the point of the home show. The point of the home show is for the business to get leads. And there's 2 ways you can do that. And one is you can get people to just like generally give you their information. So name, number, whatever. And then you've got to follow up with them later. That is okay. It's way better than passing out a bunch of flyers. But the best way to do it is just schedule estimates at the show on the calendar for you to go and do the appointments.
So I think I hope we'll get more into that later. But what's funny is that most of my experience with home shows has been through my parents. And so my parents go to these the show twice a year, and they always come back with that bag you're talking about,
Oh
just
yeah.
full of stuff. And I think that's the reason why I'm like anti stuff in my life now, is because of how many of those little things were around our house. And you know what? None of those guys got hired. Let's just put it out that way.
Yeah.
Uh, but I have like the craziest. They have just the craziest collection of things, and so I think we get, like, as business owners, we get joy out of putting our logo on stuff and giving that out. But like what you're saying is totally true, which is that, like, you got to think about the point. Like, what's the point here? The point is doing business,
Oh yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah.
if the point was to produce things, well, we're in the wrong business. Um, now, what would you say? So, one thought process I've had is that, what if you do book an estimate with your company? Like, go through that process, you actually achieve the thing. Do you give them something, or do you
Yes.
just say, "Hey, thanks. What do you do? What are you doing there?"
Yes. So 100%. So we'd like to have some sort of take with you piece. I'm going to call it a flyer, right? A postcard, something. All of our appointments are done like electronically. So we use like Calendly, like we have self-service on the website where somebody can go schedule their own estimate. And so we're really using that like same system, if you will, through Calendly. And we're using that at the show. We bring iPads, somebody walks up, we're going to have, a conversation, just like in any sales approach. Best thing is to do is ask a lot of questions. So it's just like, whatever, thinking about doing some painting this year, it might be a great way to like get somebody to like come and chat with you a little bit. And they say, well, yeah, maybe. Or you see somebody just make eye contact with your booth and they're reading that like, headline that we just talked about. And you might ask like, hey, do you guys have any questions? And that can be just like a soft, like intro into a conversation with someone. And our goal is to get them to sign up, like scheduled appointment on the calendar. When they do that, they get email sent back to them with like the calendar of invite and things like that. And then we hand them a flyer. The flyer has a discount of 10% for signing up at the home show, as well as all our contact information, some of our value statements, if you will, what makes us special, and it looks really sharp. And the website, phone number, whatever.
So it's just like a one page piece of paper. Is that the idea? Like, you're just kind of giving them like a nice
very high
design.
Yeah, very high, like quality. Exactly. But here's the important part. We do not have those sitting out on like the front table at the front of the booth. One, we don't have the front table at the front of the booth. But two, I don't want somebody to walk up and just say, I'm just going to grab a flyer. Thanks. We'll be in touch. That's not an option. So I like to keep the flyers somewhere like hidden, literally hidden, behind a sign or like in my back pocket or something like that, where I'm in control of the conversation. And if the first thing somebody says is, hey, do you have a flyer? My answer is like, I usually don't answer the question. And it's just like, are you guys planning a painting project? I want to like change the topic to have a conversation. And, they say, well, yeah, we're not really ready. Just if you could give me some, flyer. It's like, well, tell me a little bit more. Like, what part of town do you guys live in? Right. And again, I'm just trying to get them to open up to the fact that like, I'm a normal person. You're a normal person. Let's have a couple-minute conversation. Sometimes it ends with, we're not ready to sign up for an estimate. We probably are going to do something, but it might not be for months. And then they're not going to sign up. No problem. I'm going to give them a flyer. But I know that like low chance, like 5% of those flyers are going to ever call us later. And so I'm going to try hard to avoid that. And what I see a lot of, like, maybe somebody that's newer in our company working the booth, is the flyers are sitting out on the table and they're giving them out like hotcakes, because that is easier to do than to try to like have a conversation, especially when somebody's first question is, can I get a flyer? And the easy answer is, yeah, here you go. And it's like, do you guys have any painting questions? No. Oh, they already gone.
Yeah.
And it's
you're now just in a giant shred pile.
Exactly.
So I think everything you said is correct, except for the fact that you said you were a normal person, which I think we got to dive into in a future episode, because that seems presumptive.
I actually don't work the home show all that much anymore because of that reason. I've been told that I'm not allowed to go. No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, gotcha. Yeah. Great. Yeah, no, I love that. It's great.
So again, we can hand stuff out after the appointment and things like that. All right. Next one, important here.
Mhm.
Goals. We're going to have some goals. We're not going to show up to the show without any goals as to like, what are we trying to accomplish here?
So that makes sense. Can I jump in here for a second?
100%.
Because goals, I've heard people talk about three types of goals, and um, you know, SLE goals or sales, leads, exposure.
Okay.
Can't make a lot of painting sales at a home show.
True.
Do you guys do anything around leads or exposure that kind of makes sense, or you know, is that kind of in the area we're talking about?
Yeah. So for sure. I mean, again, not surprising from what we just talked about, but it's all around leads. And so
Mm-hmm.
the easy thing is like, we're going to look at what did we do last year and set a goal around to beat that.
Mm-hmm.
So, if last year we got, 108 scheduled estimates, this year the goal is going to be 115
Mm-hmm.
or something like that. Um, there's a lot of different factors, so, many of which are outside of our control. Weather this time of year, in the northern half of the country is a huge factor. We've done home shows in the past where major snowstorms show up, like you're not allowed to drive on the roads. And here we are sitting in the big convention center, and it's like crickets, and there's 40 people walking around, and it sucks.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but, you know, you you can only control what you can control. And, so it's like having no goal is worse. We're going to have some goals, and obviously we can make adjustments depending on how long the show is.
Yeah. So how many days are the shows that you go to?
Most of the shows are Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Okay.
The one that we're currently at is really long. So it's Friday, Saturday, Sunday, and then Monday through Sunday of the following week. So it's whatever,
Wow.
10 days.
Wow.
Yeah. So it is really, really long. I wish it wasn't quite this long. Um, it's the only show that we do that is this long. And we will do typically about 5 to 7 like types of shows throughout most in the spring. I think there's 1 or 2 in the fall.
Oh wow. Um, so for a show that's 10 days, what would be a fair expectation for you for the number of leads you're getting per day? Do you have a sense of that? Like obviously weather
Yeah.
and stuff. Like let's
Yep.
take all of those variables out, but like on
Sure.
average, what are you looking at?
Yeah, I think so. Again, I think there's two numbers that we're looking at: how many scheduled appointments, and then how many like other contact information. So again, some people will come and maybe they're a little bit outside of our service area, so we won't schedule them on the calendar, but we will take down their contact information in a form on the site to follow up with them afterwards. The people that schedule the appointments, like the conversion to actually getting an estimate is very high.
Hmm.
We have a scheduled appointment. Sometimes they will still cancel. When we call to confirm, hey, just check in, like we're still coming out tomorrow. Oh no, we're not interested. That does happen. But the people that just gave us their contact information on the form, it's fairly easy to like kind of hide behind not calling us back or responding to an email or text or whatever. So those don't convert quite as high. So we're looking at how many leads. For us, we're typically going to end up with something in the neighborhood of about 150, give or take,
On a
for
10-day
that
show.
on a 10-day show.
Yeah.
Yep. So in a weekend, I think like a pretty good number, depending on like there's a lot of factors here. Some of the shows we go to are very small and very local, and they cost like maybe $200 or $300 to be an exhibitor there, and they can be great but our expectations are a lot lower. If we get like 12 or 15 scheduled appointments from that would be an example of a great show,
Gotcha.
even though it's only 10% of what we might get from this bigger show.
Yeah.
Um, so
You may not know the answer to this, but I'm going to ask it anyways. Do you know what an average lead, once you break down costs, might be at a home show? Like, does it vary? Like,
I don't know offhand. So, I mean, we could kind of work our way to that number here quickly.
yeah.
So like this bigger show, again, so a booth for that show is $2,500. We have a double booth. Typically a booth is 10 by 10. So we have a 10 by 20. So I don't remember getting any discounts or whatever. So let's just call it $5,000. And the big cost that many times it's not factored in enough is like the labor time. Whether it's the business owner or a sales rep or somebody, like everybody's time is worth something, even if they're on salary or, business owner or whatever. And so like you've definitely got to factor that in. And these 10-day shows, there's a lot of time. We typically try to have 2 people at the booth most of the time, so that we can have, multiple conversations with, different people coming up. It also makes it so that it's not quite so boring if you're sitting there, and you're the only one. It's also a really good way to do some like
Hold
bonding.
on, sitting there, Michael? I heard sitting there.
Well, okay, standing. You know
Thank
what I
you.
meant.
Okay, clarify for everybody, please.
You're right. There's no sitting.
Got confusing.
You're right.
All right.
You're right. There's no sitting. But if you're standing in your booth and there's somebody else from your company there, you can still have a good, fun conversation. I've actually been there a handful of times this week, just kind of working with some of our newer employees. And it's been great as an opportunity for me to just get to know them better, chat. We can talk about, the core values of the company and, and just some of those types of things. It's actually one of my favorite ways to spend my time is go into the show with some of our newer team members.
That's cool.
But again, it's like adding to the cost of it. But then, I would say we're getting more value from it. So yeah, I mean, all in, we're at least $10,000 of cost, I would say, for this show.
So then you're bringing a lead in, say you get 150, I think that's like close to $65 a lead, I want to say.
Okay.
Quick math.
Good.
I don't know.
Sure.
People can check our math later on the calculators, but
that's pretty cheap.
It's pretty cheap. That's actually pretty decent. Obviously there's some time investment.
Sure.
There's probably going to be some brand help later.
Yeah.
But that's not bad. So it's kind of interesting to consider.
And out of 150 leads, we're probably not going to do 150 estimates, just like anything. There's going to be some, fall off from that. We close at a fairly high percent, but not quite as high as some other things. I would say, we're closing over 40%, but probably in that like 40 to 45% on home show leads. And it'll drive, a few $100,000 in revenue for us each year from all the shows that we do combined.
Crazy. Yeah, so that's good. That's really good to know, especially this time of year, right? Like this time of year when things are slower for people, and you need that boost to get you to the summer.
Yeah, all of our estimate like slots for pretty much the rest of February will be close to booked after this week-long show, this first week of February, basically.
Crazy.
And that's for like 3 or 4 reps. So it's like, we've got probably 50 slots or so in a week. And so we'll, have close to about 150 or so appointments filled more or less from the home show.
Dude, amazing.
Yeah.
It's got to feel so good this time of year, honestly.
Oh yeah.
It's great.
Yeah. We know that once, like from a sales perspective, once we get to February, things are going to be fine.
Yeah. I mean, you guys have a slightly earlier spring, right? In Cleveland. Like, what are you talking? Early April, mid-April?
Yeah. Mid-April. Yeah. We get outside around mid-April.
Yeah. So you're talking about maybe filling up a month and a half kind of thing, the home show. That's amazing. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I can't believe we waited this long. Thanks for rubbing that in.
You're welcome. Once we get to March, it's like, that's when we start to feel like, the phones start ringing, if you will, like that. Yeah. We're to that season, but the home shows in February kind of help to bridge that gap.
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah. So we got some good goals. So this one we're going to, say here is don't leave it at the show, meaning there's a lot of work to do after the show. So no matter what you do, you have to follow up with, the people whose contact information you just received. If you schedule appointments, which I, again, recommend, you still need to like follow up. We want to get people on our website. We want them to check out our Google reviews, all of that thing before we ever get to their house. So to make that sales process a lot easier, it's kind of like pre-selling. And so we're going to send them some emails, in like an automated drip campaign. It doesn't have to be automated, just to try to kind of warm them up a little bit beforehand. If you're not scheduling estimates, or maybe you don't schedule it with everybody, obviously you got a lot of work to do to get them scheduled obviously your phone calls, emails, text messages, all that kind of fun stuff.
Yeah, I think that's a big place where, things can fall apart, right? Is that you think, oh, did the show great? Let's kind of pack it all in. See everyone here next year.
Yep.
But really, that's when the work starts, right?
100%.
Like you can't do these estimates when you're at the show. You can't really close sales, and so making sure that you really foster those leads and that interest is so important. I think too, like when I think about the show or shows where you've got multiple painting contractors and they've got multiple bids, like I am like
Speed.
yeah, speed and getting to it is so important. Making sure that you show interest because some of these other people aren't doing that. They're overwhelmed. You have a team to pull that through, but a lot of people who show up at the shows they don't, and so you need to show that initiative and get in front because they were thinking about it now. And so I think speed to call, speed to lead is really important after that. And yeah, I love the nurturing stuff you're talking about because really, how many conversations have they had at that point? They're thinking like their mind is spinning. So how do we differentiate ourselves and make that sale a little bit easier when it comes time to do the estimate? So.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned it. Just to tie back that point. I mean, you said it's like the home shows they're a lot of work. Especially really for any size company, but for a smaller company, it's a lot of work. I was over at our show this morning for a few hours, and I was chatting with one of the vendors next to us. It's a roofing company this lady works for or whatever. And she was, I was like, oh, it's, here we go. It's like last weekend of this big long show. And she's like, oh, I can't wait for it to be over. I'm so tired. I've been here every day, and she's like, her energy is just dragging. First of all, that sucks because like the weekends are the busiest, and it's like you need to be like game face for the weekends. But second of all, it's like to your point, like Monday after the show, you're gonna be super busy if you did well at all at the show. It's like you have to maintain your energy to really go and a few weeks afterwards, like 1 to 3 weeks, and then after that, like people are already booking with your competitors. There's 4, 5, 6, whatever other painting companies in the show. Like those, somebody's working that lead and making sales. And if you're like kind of slowly calling people, we'll call them once a week or whatever, you're going to really miss out.
Totally.
And then the last tip here, or the last don't, is we've touched on it a few times. Don't sit back and relax. You are there to work. This is a huge opportunity. This is not a time to, feel comfortable. I would say like I'm not necessarily an extrovert. Going and just meeting a bunch of people is not like exciting to me. It's not energy bringing. But I love going to the home shows. I love talking with people. And part of it is because like I have just like done so much self-talk around like going to the home show, and like this is a great opportunity. I'm going to take advantage of it. This is going to springboard us into a great spring and summer, and things like that, that when I get to the show, I'm like bouncing. Like I have an energy that is, I would say, like unmatched. And anybody that met me at the home show would not think I'm an introvert.
Yeah, really contribute to that normal factor you brought up earlier.
For sure. Oh yeah.
Bouncing around.
Oh yeah. I'm hugging everybody. No, I don't condone hugging people. But I am like bringing the energy, right? And it's just like somebody's walking by, if they make eye contact with our booth and they're like kind of, reading the signage, I'm going to like, engage with them. Like, hey, how's it going? How's your day going? Like, how you guys enjoying the show? And I have like that home show voice where it's like, hey, like, I'm getting excited. Like, let's have a conversation here.
Is it lower or higher?
A little bit higher. So,
Yeah.
Which is, for anybody that's listening, that's saying something because, I don't have the deep tones here. So, but yes, no, I mean, I try to show up, and it's like, I try to, again, part of why I go to the show is to like show our team like the example, and I'm like getting them pumped, and I'm, like trying to really bring the energy that hopefully they will feed off, and like other people coming up to our booth will feed off. And like one of the things that I've really learned over the years, we really try to get people to walk into our booth. So they get off the aisle. I don't want you standing in the aisle having a conversation. Like, come on in, like, let's have a conversation. Like, let's look at some colors. Let's look at the cabinets that we painted. Like, you should feel them. Like, they're amazing, whatever. And what happens is people that are walking by see that, and they're like, wow, there's 10 people standing in this booth over here. And sometimes there is like literally 10 people on a weekend, with like, might be a couple. And then we've got like 3 people working it. And we've got a few different couples that are having conversations with us within this space. And people are walking by, and it's like, all of a sudden it becomes like the bakery with the line out the door. And it's just like, what is going on over there? I need to go and check this out some. And I think, again, I walk by so many booths, and it's like somebody's sitting behind the table and, often on their phone, maybe with their feet up a little, and it's just so unapproachable. And the amount of leads they're getting is significant factor lower than what we're doing.
Yeah, I think too, like, you have a team, right? So you've got a few other people there. Do you, like, how do you coach your team in that? Like to not sit back and relax and to really bring it all the time? Like, you're setting the example, but is there anything else you're doing there?
Yeah. I mean, it's a lot of the stuff we just talked about is like the, training that we provide them. We've created some video content, and even just some like written content of like, kind of, here's the rules, right? We're not here to, like, you'll notice there's no chairs in our booth. There's a reason for that. We want you to have the energy, engage with people, have conversations, and things like that. And then we've created some videos just to try to like show like an example engagement of what that might look like to hopefully help, bring that out and, get them to do that.
Cool. Yeah. It's because I think that the example you said is super helpful, but to make sure that everyone knows the plot when you're not there is important too. So, and I think overall, like, whenever we've done great events where we're interacting with people we don't know, being fun and having fun amongst our team, amongst, the people we're dealing with, being, like you said, high energy, that like squeaky voice of yours or whatever, which I can't wait to experience one day.
That's great.
Yeah. I mean, that kind of stuff is really important, not only for people coming in, but also for your team to feel like, hey, this was a fun event. Like, we should do this. Because I think a lot of people are scared to interact with people. And that's probably what the root of this is, like why people sit back at tables, why they create barriers, is that they know they should be there, but they don't actually want to be there. And that's a whole different thing. Right. So, we really try to create, an atmosphere where when you get a lead, that's success, and we celebrate it together. We try to create these environments where, we're having fun, we're joking with each other. Whether we bring Red Bull to the show and we're just like, guys, make sure you're amped up all the time or not. Like, that remains to be seen, because we've had success at this type of approach. But it's a sit back, relaxing way to come to you. It's just going to kill you.
And I think it's like that fine line, right? If we do these shows, there's a lot of like, we always joke, it's like locally, it's the window companies. And, it's like the, I'm going to call it, anyways, it's like the frat bros that are like out in the aisle, and it's like so intimidating. And I think it's like off-putting to a lot of people. And to be clear, that's not what I'm talking about. I am not talking about like standing in the middle of the aisle and like carnival barker style, like screaming at people about their painting job. That is obnoxious. And I hope you didn't put your logo on your booth, because you will absolutely turn people off. So like that's, again, to be clear, that's not what I'm talking about. But it's like similar to like having the mentality of like, I'm going to the cocktail party. I am there to like meet some people and like be friendly and ask questions and have a smile on my face and like, be welcoming and like, again, conversational. Like that's really what it's all about. Yeah. Having some energy.
Cool. Yeah. Well, I think that's great. So for those who are just starting to tune in here at minute 40, what we were talking about was 6 things not to do at a trade or home show in order to have success. Michael, thanks for the insight, man. It's super fun to chat with you about this, because I'm learning. Like I said, we're doing it for the first time, and I think these are really valuable points. So wish me luck.
Good luck.
Thank you. And I can't wait to hear my voice when I'm there. I'll send you a recording. It's going to be
Yeah.
fantastic.
Yeah. Bring some water.
Drink some water and Red Bull. That's what I'm doing. So yeah, I mean, for those who have made it to this point as well, we would love you to like and subscribe. I've been told I need to say that because we need the encouragement, and it's super helpful to us. So like and subscribe. We're happy you're here. So
yeah, I'm excited. I know we're going to have some guests coming on here soon. We're going to,
absolutely.
so our original goal when we put this together was like to try to just share some, hopefully helpful content and, some experience that you and I have. And, let's call it what it is. Like, this is something new for us. We wanted to, try to like work out some of the initial kinks of, two guys that run painting businesses, trying to put together a, podcast. We're not experts at this. I'm sure that has not been lost on anyone yet. But I think we're starting to get maybe a little more comfortable with it, and we're excited to start bringing on some guests and start hearing some from some other experts and stuff.
Absolutely. There's some amazing people in our industry that just never get heard from. And I think through the PaintScout network, we just have such a wild opportunity to learn from people who are doing amazing things. And so I'm excited for that too. Tune in as we keep exploring this subject. So have a great day. Talk to you soon.
Take care.
Thanks very much.